So at the base of system thinking is opening up our mindset and opening up our understanding into becoming this system thinker. It forces us to think dynamically. It forces us to think about system and cause instead of system and outcomes. Understand the cause, you can have an impact on the outcome. And it challenges us to do something more with forest thinking, shifting from command control to collaboration. And with that, that's like the foundation work that's required for a systems thinking viewpoint.
Thank you so much for joining another edition of The Never-Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, I have the great pleasure of being joined by Rae Andrews. And Leslie is so passionate about adult learning, the hospitality industry, and of course, procurement and supply chain. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today.
You know, Sean, it's really a pleasure to be here. Excited to be here with you and your audience as we talk about hospitality and procurement and that interchange.
Love it. Love it. So what's the best way for people to think about the hospitality industry? Because sometimes people think about supply chain, they think of procurement, and they don't connect that dot, but it's such a pivotal part of it.
Yes. If you're having to purchase something for any type of institution or on the corporate side, any type of function, that is procurement. You're procuring goods and services for something in particular. It could be for a hotel, maybe it's for guest rooms, maybe if it's for airline, you have that whole chain there. But on the corporate side of the house, you're procuring the experience of your travelers when they're traveling on business.
I think this is one of those pieces where when we think about it the right way, there's things in procurement, in supply chain that are easy to forget. But forgetting things is often associated with the way that we look at them, the frame of mind, the frame of reference. And I think we both share this passion for systems thinking, this like not celebrated enough superpower that really helps leaders take it to the next level. Can you share your thoughts around systems thinking, Leslie?
Sure. Systems thinking is a different way of viewing. It's opening up and thinking about it holistically. And sometimes we are linear thinkers and we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where we have to think of the whole system in order to have the most positive outcome. The most optimization happens when you've thought the entire system through. And it really challenges us to think differently. So at the base of system thinking is opening up our mindset and opening up our understanding into becoming this system thinker. It forces us to think dynamically. It forces us to think about system and cause instead of system and outcomes. Understand the cause, you can have an impact on the outcome. And it challenges us to do something more with forest thinking, shifting from command control to collaboration. And with that, that's like the foundation work that's required for a systems thinking viewpoint.
There's something so powerful about the collaboration view and about the causes, the influences.
Yes.
It's very normal for us to look at something in a sequential checklist. But really, when you take that checklist and you kind of stretch it out on its side and then you kind of turn it sideways and look at it from this angle and that angle, it opens up the opportunity to completely remove steps and to design entirely new processes that get to the outcome faster, simpler, right? There's so many teams that get stuck in these are the things that need to happen. I can imagine, Leslie, you've also been in workshops or design conversations or process conversations where somebody insists that it's got to be done this way because audit said it. They're going to audit this later. And then you go and you talk to audit and they're like, no, you could do that 10 different ways. That's just the way we've been doing it. If you change it, as long as you're consistent, we'll go audit it the new way. And that's fair game. But there's,
as long as
the
you have
blinders that people get on.
Exactly. As long as you have the business case for that new way of thinking. And sometimes you have to do a POC yourself, a proof of concept yourself in this system way of thinking so that you evidence to assert this new way of thinking that it's beneficial for the organization, it's beneficial for the team, or it's beneficial for the org as a whole. But it starts small and then
Yeah.
grow it out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something really wonderful about adoption of some of those new systems. And by systems, I don't mean technology. I mean like the way we organize ourselves and the people, the process, and sure, technology can help automate. But there's the adoption of that I think really makes a difference. There's a set of ingredients that go and help, the teaspoon of sugar to help the medicine go down. What advice would you have for somebody listening around how you've helped that happen?
Sure. When it comes to adoption and change management, it's meeting people where they are, adopting a little nudge theory. Thank you, University of Chicago Nobel laureates, for presenting that as a doable way of nudging people to the right behavior that you're looking for. Maybe it's nudging towards policy, or maybe it's nudging to support preferred suppliers. And with that, you have the stickiness that's required in order to have sustained behavioral change. And that's what we want. We want sustained behavioral change that has that long-term impact against the goal.
Yeah. Finding ways, I like to think about how water runs downhill and creating as many opportunities for that change to run downhill towards the outcome that you want it to. And things like the user experience, the environment that we create, the way that we leave people feeling are all ingredients in helping make that happen. I'm excited too, because as somebody who is experienced and skilled in adult learning, I think that paired with this career that you've chosen leaves you in a pretty cool spot to go and help leave these adults in the room with some cool things for them to learn. Do you have a few things that you wish more leaders, more aspiring leaders would take into their mindset and the way that they look at the world to go help them help everybody else better?
Sure. It's remaining open to the learning, or remaining open to design thinking or dynamic thinking. And that creates us to let go of what we thought we knew and be truly open for something new, something different. That forest thinking. And I'm a firm believer in the Socratic method, where everyone has a different idea, which is great and fantastic. And you build on that. And as a skilled facilitator, you get to their very best solutions from all the brains in the room working towards a better solution together, collaboratively. There is power being together. We're better together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's something so important in what you said there of being open, because there are so many examples in procurement and supply chain in life where something that you used to know was true, or at least believed it was true, may have been true at the time, maybe not, but 5 years, 10 years, however many years later, that maybe doesn't matter because there is something new that has changed or something new that's true. One of my favorite examples of these, Leslie, was in a supply chain crunch when supply is really tight. The default reaction of most procurement teams is, don't you raise prices now. But if you don't have the supply you need, then guess what? You don't have product to ship. And that, to me, is where the strongest supply chain and what you believe may not be appropriate or true in this context. And what you were describing, Leslie, in that systems thinking and that how you bring things back really, really hammers that home. What else would you add to that?
I would add that you have to know your audience. And as you use nudge theory, it's so important to know where people are and understand their thinking initially so that you can introduce a new thought or concept. And sometimes it's a nudge versus here's another approach. And sometimes it's a nudge in the right direction, and be satisfied with that nudge. Let them see the IKEA effect of that nudge so that they will, again, take another nudge in that direction to meet the stated goal. The goals should be tied to the organization's mission and vision so that there's true alignment. And with that alignment, you will be able to move mountains because it's aligned. It's aligned to what the organization advises is their goal, their mission, their vision. And once you have that alignment and a little nudge with another nudge, then you're able to move the needle and eventually you'll gain the momentum. Got to have some patience, but the momentum is sustained.
Yeah. There's something that goes with that too, of those nudges sometimes will face some pushback. I think this is where tying it up with the adoption and the nudge and the direction and the alignment, sometimes there's conversations of somebody for one reason or another is still, they're partway there, or they're aligned and they're trying, but they don't see something, or they understood something in a way that wasn't the way you intended them to. And that combination can sometimes need, I think Brene Brown calls it a rumble, which is such a wonderful frame around like, listen, we got to go talk this through, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it well. And we're going to assume that positive intent as we come through it. And I can feel that in the way that you're describing this, Leslie Rae, that's the way that you show up, that's what you foster. What advice would you have for somebody that's hit one of those snags and needs to discover what was miscommunicated or what was misunderstood? Do you have a story around that?
You know, it reminds me of understanding what trust comes from and how do you build that over time before you have these great, grand conversations, and understand the logic of the participants that you're speaking to. And maybe the wobble, as another HBR Harvard laureate said, a Harvard professor advised, is the logic and lack of trust due that the person doesn't really think that you know? Or is it they don't think that you're being authentic? Or they don't believe that you have any empathy for their situation or how they're feeling in the moment? And once you decide what's missing in your messaging, then you address the wobble in the trust. And you build that trust so that you can present new and exciting things for the organization overall. So it's called a trust triangle, and it's logic, empathy, and authentic. So authentic in the reason why you're introducing something new. Logic, ironclad, especially with linear thinkers. They may not be able to see around the edges. That's okay. And that's why I am a believer in a proof of concept and doing your own POC to assert itself as evidence for a different way of doing anything, because that gives folks more confidence in your solution.
I love it. I think that sense of a three-legged stool of here's three things that you can check in on when you hit one of those bumps, when you hit a wobble, when you hit something that needs a little teaspoon of sugar to go down. There's so many examples that I can think of leaders that I admire who hit one of those and then they bring it back to that, slightly different words, but that positive intent and that here's why we're doing it. Here's why it's aligned. And here's why I see you and I hear you. And there's also, I think there's an acknowledgement sometimes of, hey, when I said that, I was trying to convey this. I hear that you heard it that way. That wasn't what I meant. How can we sort out that difference, right? And a curiosity that comes with that as an ingredient to kind of round it out. I am delighted and always excited for more leaders like you that are out there helping to foster this in the world, as opposed to some of the other alternatives.
Forest thinking is a big mindset to understand and to maintain, because it keeps you open to collaborate with others and let go of the command and control, but be open to collaboration, because that's where the value is, the real value in this dynamic environment that we call life today.
Right? And dynamic it is. And Leslie Rae, I am so glad that you've been able to spend some time from your busy day to join us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And let's do system thinking together.
Absolutely. I think more system thinkers in the world will make it a much better place. And you bring that logic, that empathy, and the right way of looking at how to collaborate. Man, it's amazing the mountains we can move. And for all of you watching, thank you very much. This has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Sean.